Inflation sucks. You're poorer than you were before, but you knew all that. I don't have any fancy words to tell you this. You see it. We already know the inflation numbers from today, 6.4%. But that's not really the real story, because when you include last year, it's 15.4%. And those are the numbers they fudge, keep in mind. So I don't need to report something to you. Breaking news here on I'm Right. This is stuff you experience every single day. I know this. Eggs up 70%, bread 14.9, chicken 10, baby food 10, fuel oil 27, airfares up 25. All while hourly earnings are down. I don't need to break news. Breaking news, inflation is bad. You know, because you've watched your standard of living go down and down and down and down. But don't worry, it's not Joe Biden's fault.
Do you take any blame for inflation, Mr. President?
Am I taking blame for inflation? No.
Correct. Why not?
Because it was already there when I got here, man. Remember what the economy was like when I got here? Jobs were hemorrhaging. Inflation was rising. We weren't manufacturing a damn thing here. We were in real economic difficulty. That's why I don't. Thank you.
And that's leadership. Joining me now, recovering investment banker and author of the new book, You Will Own Nothing, the great Carol Roth, who is, well, everyone's familiar with the great Carol Roth on this show. Carol, none of this is Joe Biden's fault, is it? Horrible inflation numbers out today, and Joe didn't do any of this.
Well, he's referring back to, when I got here, things were not going well. He meant during the Great Depression when he first got into Congress. So to be fair, compared to back then, things are a little bit better. But of course, none of this is his fault. He did not decide to put stimulus checks into a supply-constrained economy. He did not decide to, kill energy policy. None of this is really his fault at all. And he's done absolutely nothing to fix these supply constraints that we have through labor, through housing, through, energy, so on and so forth. So, I would just say zero was his fault. But, again, for those of you who are remembering back before he took the presidency office, he's just remembering a different time.
Yeah, if it's remembering anything at all. Okay, Carol, look, I can't believe I'm starting a sentence this way, but in Joe Biden's defense, it's not all his fault. I have to have this conversation with people on the right all the time that we love to pin this all on Joe Biden. The vast quantity of money that was printed before Joe Biden ever walked into office is a huge part of this. Look, you want to shut down your society and just print money as if it's never going to matter at all? This is the result of all this. This is the result of lockdowns. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, no, this is very true. And I also caveat it because I'm a truth teller. When you had a scenario during COVID, when you decided to shut down a third of the economy and assume that you could just turn it back on, print trillions of dollars, give direct stimulus away, we knew that there was going to be a long tail effect to that. And so the wheels were set in motion before Joe Biden got there. It's the decisions that he's made since he got into office, which could have made this, it could have stopped it, or it could have made it a lot less worse, or a lot less bad than it is today. And he decided to just double down on the existing bad policies and add more policies. I mean, the first thing he did in office was cancel oil and gas leases. And we know that the cost of oil and gas has been a huge contributor to inflation throughout, not just the energy piece of the economy, but obviously, no pun intended, that powers a whole lot of the rest of the economy, including 6,000 derivative products that come from oil. So he could have changed it. He chose now not to, and he still chooses not to. I mean, the numbers that came out today, we are still at 6.5% inflation year over year, on top of all of the inflation from last year. And he is not doing anything to change it. He's leaning on the Fed, that all of their tools can do is crush demand. They can try to crush jobs and make things really bad for you, but they're not printing oil, they're not printing labor, they're not printing homes, they're not solving any of those issues that could be done with fiscal policy that Joe Biden refuses to do.
Carol, I think a lot of people it's not that people lose sight of it. The news doesn't report it. They love to cover up the fact that on top of today's inflation number, as you just referenced, this is on top of last year's inflation. We are now at 15% and wages are down. So correct me if I'm wrong, that means the average American, most Americans who aren't in the upper income brackets, have a 15% lower quality of life today than they did 2 years ago. Do I have that right?
Yeah, less purchasing power for sure. And I would argue, and I think most Americans would argue that it's much more than that because they fiddle with the numbers to make it sound much better than it actually is, for a political perception standpoint, and also so they don't have to increase the cost of living adjustments on things like Social Security for as much as they would otherwise. So I think if you talk to the average American, they understand that it's not 15%, it's probably 30 or 40%, which is absolute insanity. And by the way, was entirely predictable. And that's the part that's so frustrating. People like you, people like me, were saying all along, this is going to be the outcome. And these supposed experts told us it wasn't going to happen. It was going to be transitory. It was going to be good for you. Bread lines are a great way to meet your neighbor. All of those kinds of things until, now they're at a point in saying, oh, well, it's not that bad, or we have it under control. They just aren't being honest. And I don't understand the strategy because people are feeling it in their wallets and in their day-to-day lives. And Americans aren't stupid. It's insulting.
Carol, something else that's out there that people aren't really paying attention to is some IRS numbers. We have some early IRS numbers showing tax returns are down 11% this year. Carol, why are tax returns down?
So do we mean refunds? Tax refunds are down?
Refunds, I'm sorry,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. So here's my take on refunds is you actually don't want to get a tax refund because that means you've overpaid the government. That's a tax-free loan that you have given the government for the greater part of a year. That's your money. So in an ideal scenario, you would actually keep your money for the year. And now that we actually have some interest rates, perhaps you would invest that money, make a little bit on it, or, unfortunately this year have to pay for your cost of living. So, we don't want to get tax refunds. We don't want the government to be holding on to our money. That being said, that's not how most people operate. I understand that this is a behavioral issue. And there's a whole bunch of stimulus and special provisions that have sunsetted out of the COVID emergency funds. So that's why people are getting back less. Some of the deductions they were able to take or the credits that they got previously have now sunsetted out. And that's why you may see a lower refund. But remember, if you're planning ahead, try to get it so that the government is not getting a tax-free loan from you because they already get too much from you.
Carol, it is Valentine's Day. And it is my understanding that you have made a special preparation for us here on I'm Right, and I would just like to give you the floor for whatever you have prepared for us.
Thank you. Well, I am always such a ray of sunshine. So in honor of Valentine's Day, I have a poem for you, Jesse, which is roses are red, violets are blue. The world would be a better place if everyone were you. And most of all, I just want to thank you so much for writing that for me, Jesse. It helped me out. And I hope that I delivered it in a way that was satisfactory to you after all the work you put into that. So.
This is a beautiful poem. My heart's, it's so full right now.
Full.
Carol Roth, everybody. Thank you, Carol.